Okay, hello. My name is Izzy Ortega. I'm a student in the SES paramedics program, and over the next couple minutes, I'm going to discuss with this very beautiful picture I have painted up here that took me a couple minutes. I'm going to discuss the anatomy of the heart and circulatory system, how the blood travels through the heart and body, the nervous system and how it controls the heart, and the difference between mechanical and electrical function. So, first off, we're just going to start off with the anatomy of the heart. The heart is made up of, it's got four chambers: the right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. Those are really the most important things that you need to know about this real quick. But other than that, it's got a sinus here, sinus wall that separates the left and the right side. It's got your arteries that are leading towards the heart, and it's got your veins that are leading also towards the heart. The arteries are signified in red. That means that they have the oxygenated blood. And the veins will be signified in blue. That means that they have the deoxygenated blood that the rest of your body has already used up. Besides your vessels, your veins and arteries, you also have the SA node here, and I'll actually use a marker as my pointer. This is the SA node. This is the AV node. And if you can't really see it from where you're sitting or where you're standing, down here there's a black path that signifies the Purkinje fibers. And the Purkinje fibers and the nodes will actually go on more detail here in a little bit. So the circulatory system, just red and blue, what happens is this blue portion, this blood is coming from your body and it dumps into your right atrium. The reason why it's deoxygenated is because there is that exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide in your cells. So the cells are taking the oxygen and they're offloading carbon dioxide into your veins. Carbon dioxide is the byproduct of oxygen being used. So the blood gathers into your inferior and your superior vena cava, and they dump into the right atrium, as I mentioned before. From the right atrium, the pressure of the contraction will force that blood down into the right ventricle. As that's happening, your valves here will open up. Your heart also has four valves, if I didn't mention it before already. It's got this valve, this one. There's also one under the aorta, the aortic valve, and then this one right here on the left side of the heart. So back to where I was, from the right ventricle, it'll come up the pulmonary valve here and into your pulmonary veins, just like this. And from here, they'll actually branch out left and right towards the left lung and right lung. What it does there, what happens to the blood there, is they'll kind of follow this path here. If you can see, you probably won't see this side very well, but they'll follow this path around the lungs, and that's where the exchange of carbon dioxide and oxygen happens. As you breathe in, the oxygen is being dumped into the blood, and as you breathe out, the carbon dioxide is going out. And that's a constant thing that's always happening. Same with the heartbeat. Once it's oxygenated, it comes back through the right and left pulmonary arteries, and they both dump into the left atrium there. From the contraction, the blood in the left atrium will flow down into the left ventricle. From that contraction, the blood in the left ventricle, the pressure of the contraction will block or close this valve so that there's no backflow of blood, which that's normal, that's supposed to happen. And that pressure will force that blood into the aorta. This is the aorta. It's probably the biggest vessel in your entire body. About the size of a hose is what a lot of people compare it to. So here, it'll branch off into your right subclavian and your left subclavian arteries and your left carotid artery. Those three arteries there, they'll actually branch off into your upper limbs and provide blood for those, and the left carotid artery will branch off into both sides of your neck and provide blood and branch off even more to your face, nose, lips, head, etc., all that stuff. So the blood, once it's evenly distributed into these arteries here, the majority of it will still keep going down. And as it goes further down, it turns into the abdominal aorta there. From there, it branches off even more and goes down to the rest of your body. And at very specific sites within those veins and arteries and cells is where that what word was I looking for? That exchange. There you go. The exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide happens. The oxygen is being used by cells, and the carbon dioxide is being dumped by cells back into the vessels. And as it's being used, it'll flow back up and down the superior and inferior vena cavas. And that is the circulatory system. That's how the blood also travels through the heart and body. Now, one of the things I wanted to talk about as well are the mechanical and electrical functions of the heart. The electrical function, as I mentioned earlier, is part of these nodes here, SA node, the AV node, and the Purkinje fibers. The electrical impulse starts here at the SA node, and it's actually the main pacemaker of the heart. It discharges at 60 to 100 a minute. The AV node also discharges, but it's not the main pacemaker. It can actually be used as backup. If the SA node decides to slow down for whatever reason, the AV node can take over. If that decides to slow down, the Purkinje fibers can also take over. So it's just backup upon backup. With the SA node, there is an exchange of potassium and sodium that happens, and once that exchange happens in and out, it creates an electrical impulse. That electrical impulse is traveling down towards the AV node, and not just, let me grab the black marker here, not just down towards the AV node, but there are actually also branches that come off this way into the left atrium, and another one that comes off this way. Those are called interatrial pathway and interventricular pathway. Just another route to send that impulse. As that impulse is traveling down, it comes down and gathers into these things called the Purkinje fibers down this way, and they actually branch off to the left side of the heart and the right side of the heart. That electrical impulse, as it's traveling down, it's being grouped in with the cardiac cells. Those are the mechanical cells of the heart. Once the mechanical or cardiac cells get that impulse, it actually tells them to contract. And when they contract, that's the lub-dub that you hear upon auscultation. That's the S1, normal S1 and normal S2 sounds. So the impulse is created here, the electrical function by the SA node, travels down, and kind of gives off that impulse towards all the cardiac cells there. Okay, so I believe I've talked about the circulatory system, the heart, and the anatomy of that, how the blood travels through your body, and the difference between the mechanical and electrical functions of the heart. Yeah, so my name is Izzy. I hope you enjoyed my picture here. It's not the best, but I did spend quite a few minutes making it as close as possible. I hope everything was able to be seen pretty clearly. I know there's quite a bunch of swirls there, but I think my explanation did it all right. All right, so that is the circulatory system and the heart. Once again, my name is Izzy. Thank you for watching.